But in a situation where you find that a person look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
Okay, now let's take a look at what the papers are saying. Meanwhile, we already have our guest reviewer in the studio, editor 21st Century Chronicles, Nuruddin Abdullah. He's here with us and he'll be reviewing the papers with us today. Let's take a look at the front page of Daily Trust newspaper. Now, the lead here says Russia-Ukraine war. Operational hitches delay evacuation of stranded Nigerians. And writers here say anxiety heightens among parents. Citizens' refusal to return responsible, says government official. And details of that story can be found on page 5. Right below that, you'd find a pictorial there of President Muhammadu Buhari addressing the 50th anniversary of the United Nations Environmental Program in Kenya yesterday. And at the top there, NNPC rules out fuel price hike, says 1.7 billion liters in stock. Federal government begins Abba Kyari's extradition process. We also have uncertainty as Kwankwaso set to join NNPP on page 14. If you come down to the footnote there, you'd find a story that says ISWAP training suicide bombers to attack security agents and communities, says DSS. You can find details of that story on page 6. Federal government to sanction underperforming discos, insists meters are free. All right, founder of Oduduwa University remanded over murder of OAU student on page 20. And then we have on 2023, Nigeria needs serious change, says Tinubu. And details of that story can be found on page 14. These are some of the stories that we have on the front page of Daily Trust.
All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning. It leads with the story about politics. It says, our concerns about 2023 general elections by INEC. The writer says there is security threat, says PDP. Political spending pushes up demand for dollar. And then other stories there, you would see banking contributed 168.4 trillion naira to GDP in 4 years. Hiccups delay evacuation of Nigerians from Ukraine. Federal government ASU to renegotiate 2019 agreement. Well, other stories say 2009. Now, the next one there says Tinubu takes consultation to Ekiti monarchs. And then the other stories, NDLEA files charge against Kyari and others. Malami, why we want police chief extradited. You know, that discussion is for later, but I mean, a lot of people are asking, why now? I mean, especially if you look at all of the issues surrounding the arrest of Abba Kyari. The other stories there says petrol hoarders to be sanctioned, and that's according to the NNPC amidst the continuous scarcity of fuel in the country. So that's that for the Nation this morning.
All right, with that, we move on to the next paper, which is the Guardian newspaper. And the lead here says Electoral Act 2022. Nigerians divided as Buhari seeks further amendment. Provision is unconstitutional, says Sage. There is nothing wrong with it, says Adeborowa, insists. Melaye, Kadiri, others urge NAS to ignore president. And we have a pictorial of Vladimir Putin there with a title, Fear of Potential Enemies, Domination Spur Russia's Invasion. And that is on the big story on page 4 and 5. And we also have PDP, CNG, seek Adamu's resignation over ASU strikes, disdain for NANS. Details of that on page 4. NDLEA slams 8 criminal charges against Abba Kyari, others over drug offenses. We also have democratic practices declining under APC. IU tells EU observers. Governors insist on subsidy removal, says NNPC. contributes 0 to FAAC. And on the footnote there, we have INEC raises the alarm over IDPs, saying growing number threatens 2023 elections. And these are the stories on the Guardian newspaper.
All right. On the Punch newspaper, the lead story says governors fume over falling FAC funds. And then you have Capet NNPC. Below that, NNPC not meeting FAC obligation, but declaring profit, oil sector opaque, and that's according to FIME. Firm's zero remittance shows Nigeria's bankruptcy. Akeredolu, fuel scarcity not abating. And then you'd see also other stories there. NDLEA charges may stall Abba Kyari's extradition to U.S. You'd see also FG can't extradite amid pending charges. That's according to SAN. Then FG has no funds to meet ASU demands. Again, the Minister of Labour has reiterated that saying. Other stories at the very top of the Punch newspaper. Nigeria failed to increase export diversification over time, says IMF. And then other stories below the pictorial. There, the pictorial actually shows you, the chaos in Ukraine amidst the bombardment of certain locations. Nigerian fighters must provide $1,000 for ticket and visa. That's according to Ukraine. Recall that some young Nigerians marched to the Ukrainian embassy in Abuja, demanding, or rather seeking to go to Ukraine to fight on behalf of Ukraine, even as the Russia-Ukraine war continues. So, well, when they got there, it appears that they are not just going to be, jet out of the country. They will be paying $1,000, for tickets and then for their visa as well.
You had some of them actually saying if they had $1,000 that they wouldn't want to, go and fight, that they would, start a business in Nigeria and see where it takes them.
I mean, I think there's some misinformation somewhere because, yes, Ukraine is in need of support, but again, at the same time, not like this. All right, now, other stories there at the very bottom. Democracy has declined under Buhari, and that's according to the PDP chair, Ayocha Ayu. You would see also customer baits Lagos POS operator with hot soup over data. Some things can only happen in Lagos.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, other stories there. 2023, desperate politicians may attack polling units. And that's INEC warning. That's for the Punch newspaper this morning.
All right, with that, we'll move on to Nigerian Tribune. And at the top there, we have a story of 2 doctors who die of Lassa fever in Oyo State. And then uncertainty greets APC Zonal Congress. Caretaker committee yet to begin sale of forms. Releases new list of subcommittees. Details of that on page 4. We also have beneath the nameplate, fuel crisis. APC has lost control of governance, says PDP. NNPC warns against price increases. We also have federal government reconstitutes team to renegotiate 2009 ASU agreement. FG has till March 31 to meet our demands or we roll over strike, says ASU. And then, the big news there, talking about the lead story, has to do with Abba Kyari as federal government approves his extradition process. NDLEA structures Kyari's drug case to face 8-count charges with 6 others. And then below it, you'd see a pictorial of Europe, of a yacht. Yes, Europe seizes yachts of Russian oligarchs. That's on the Russian versus Ukraine war. Beside it, you'd actually see OAU student murder. Adedoyin, 6 others arraigned and remanded in prison. These are some of the stories on in the Nigerian Tribune newspaper.
All right, now let's get perspectives on some of these stories. We have in the studio Nuruddin Abdullah, editor 21st Century Chronicle. to give us perspectives on some of these stories. Well, thank you for joining us on Daybreak this
Thank you,
morning.
Mr. Ivan.
Well, it appears that the hope of some young Nigerians who are able-bodied and willing to go and fight on behalf of Ukraine has been dashed, by the Ukrainian embassy. I mean, volunteering to go into a war-torn, environment, as against where you have, your peace and everything is, relatively okay.
You see, I actually thought it was fake news until I saw it on the front pages of some of the newspapers. But seriously, that showcased the desperation of some Nigerians. A desperation in the sense that most of these people that have besieged the embassy may have been graduates. But because of the socio-economic realities in the country, they are not able to get something doing. The business environment is chaotic. You understand? You can't do almost anything. Look at the power supply. Look at the insecurity. Look at even the fuel situation. So maybe even doing a little startup here and there are becoming impossibilities. So any opportunity of slipping away from the chaos is a welcomed one. And that explains,
regardless
Even
of whatever
if it means entering
uncertainty
another
Yes.
one is going to
minus the money. I think maybe the Ukrainian diplomats, put that caveat so that they discourage Nigerians. Because talking about $1,000, you are buying it from the black market. We're talking about 570,000 naira. So you know what that means? Over half a million. And to go to Ukraine, fight how? Are they trained military personnel?
They do not have to be trained. After all, in Ukraine, the president has decided that everyone interested should pick a gun and defend the country.
Teach them how to shoot the gun.
So even civilians, ordinary civilians, untrained in Ukraine, have that opportunity.
And is it possible that Nigerians don't even understand the veracity of what is happening in the Ukraine? Because, what we see on TV that we actually know.
But even what you see on TV is enough to send shivers into your missiles flying.
But if we have people this passionate, we've been dealing with Boko Haram in Nigeria for more than 10 years now, and we have banditry with us here, as well. Just not too far away from Abuja, if you move away to the northeast. In fact, as close as Niger State, we have banditry that we are dealing with. One will think, why don't you just volunteer? We have civilian JTF, and vigilante groups everywhere.
You use this word passionate, but I use the word desperate. It is actually not passion, but desperation. Is Niger, Maiduguri, Kaduna abroad? No, you want to go abroad. That's the real thing. So it is not about passion, it's about desperation. They believe that if they cross over there, they can do all manner of menial jobs. And because of the value of the currency, they can eke out a living and send something home. But, the value of our currency is, go to Saudi Arabia, for instance. I once met a young lady. She was selling food and whatever. And if you see, I asked her, the effort we are putting here, why can't you stay back in the country? Because they were living in very ramshackle, going off and down against security agents, metropolitan officials and whatever. She said, no. She said, the Naira. Because our real at that time was about 150 to an hour. You understand? He says the value of the money. You see,
But anyways, could it be one of the reasons why we're seeing also the lead story on Daily Trust, for instance, talks about, operational hitches delaying evacuation of stranded Nigerians. But below that, there's also the one that says citizens are refusing to return. It's part of the things that is causing the delay. That's according to a government official.
that is true. They are calculating the war will not last forever. It's Russia versus Ukraine, you understand?
But no one knows that.
Yeah, but apparently there must be a diplomatic solution to it. The president of Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky, that is arming all manner of youths, You see, he belongs to the Facebook generation guy. He doesn't know history. He doesn't know international politics. He has been misled, you understand, to allow that to happen. So now the international community, the Western nation he relied on, he's feeling disappointed now. He thought that there would be boots on ground. He's even thinking that now, as of yesterday, he said that he wants fighter jets. Who will pilot the fighter jets? Those civilians that are armed, that have been armed with assault rifles? So that's the contradiction. That is one. So we don't think that the war will last forever. And that is the calculation of many Nigerians. Let them stay in Romania, Slovakia, Poland, and other Baltic states and see if to last for a month or so is enough. They will still go back, clean up their... It's better to be an IDP or refugee in Ukraine, even though it is a war-torn country, than to be one in Nigeria. She knows and I know. So that is the calculation. And by the time now, okay, the federal government is magnanimous enough. The president approved $8.5 million for the evacuation processes. If you bring me back, how will I go back? That's the thinking.
Again, but if the government is not seen to be mobilizing and making such efforts, again, the narrative will be different. Oh, government doesn't care about its citizens in foreign land and all of that kind of, talk. Now the government has made all of that efforts. And then some of the people concerned here are not willing to return.
Mr. Ayuba, I think only the students will return, not those who are doing one thing or the other there. Just look at this, to use your words, passionate Nigerians who are so much concerned about humanity that they want to go and fight on the side of Ukraine against the... How? With bare hands? So that's the problem. It is our socio-economic realities. And look at it. Look at the Mediterranean scandal. People are being tricked in the name of going to Europe. They are being sold as slaves in the deserts of Libya. People are dying.
And let's not forget, the fact that on social media, we have seen several Africans, including Nigerians, doing videos, narrating their ordeals, the kind of, treatment that they were meted with along the borders, trying to cross into the neighboring countries from Ukraine. The treatment of racism and all of that. And yet, people don't think that, you rather stay in Nigeria.
Now, before you actually answer that, there were actually clamors in the beginning, that Nigerians wanted out of Ukraine, and that was why the federal government decided to act. But now we're seeing that they're saying they want to stay.
The socio-economic realities, like I insist, are the major problems. Okay, despite these videos, to use your words, some passionate young men are besieging the embassy here. They want to go and fight. The problem is we're in chaos here. Look at it. The fuel that we have taken for granted. In Kaduna yesterday, it was 265 naira per liter. You have to bribe your way with about 500 something to get.
But can that be equated to a war? if you look at it.
No.
I mean, you are putting yourself in harm's way, literally, in a position where there's likelihood of you being killed.
Returning.
But that's not the case here, is it?
And they have the
No,
idea that
actually, but the thinking, the mentality of most of our people here, I mean, it is a war situation. At least you'll be accounted for. There is insurgency in the northeast, banditry in the northwest and some parts of the north central. People are being killed every day.
The idea in their heads is, once they go to Ukraine, at least their families will be taken care of. And even yesterday, I actually read a report that two footballers, I don't know how true it is, but two footballers, that's Ukrainian footballers who, took up arms, to fight, died, lost their lives.
What if they die because it is their time? Our belief here from this part of the country. So by the time I go to Ukraine, I'll find my way. I have masters also, for instance. I work as a janitor, earn the euro, eat, live, and send something even back home. If the value of your currency, like that girl I met in Saudi, he said, look at the Naira. He said in a day what she makes here, if she converts it into Nigerian Naira, it's enough. She's from Kano. She built a house back here. And she timed her. She said that she sent her younger ones to school. She was just doing menial jobs and what have you. But here, how much do you earn in a month? What is the value? Put it inside your pocket and go to the supermarket and see. Minus foiling, you have to buy your own power, school fees, and what have you. So these are the realities. All this revealed the problems the country is actually grappling with. Because no sane person that a country being invaded by Russia, and some people here are passionate enough to go and confront.
So the need
Well,
to
talk-
Jagba actually
to-
supersedes.
Yeah. Well, talking about, the sufferings of Nigerians, NNPC is ruling out fuel price hike. It says it has 1.7 billion liters in stock. But yet, the queues are there. It doesn't look like the queues are disappearing. And the difficulty is increasing by day. Already Nigerians are buying that fuel, a liter for as much as maybe 350 naira, 400 naira. And gradually it looks like we're settling for it.
I don't know what the NNPC is doing, because this thing we're almost in the third or fourth week with this crisis. Like joke, like they say here. You understand? So if you have these millions of liters, why can't you flood the market with it? We are coming from a methanol, is it a methanol contaminated fuel, now to the Ukraine war? If, for instance, now a husband cannot give up food money to his wife, he will say that it is because of the Russia invasion of. So there are so many excuses. So you understand? If actually, because apparently the situation is becoming, like you said, more pathetic, and that's come to stay. One of the achievements of President Buhari's administration is he ended fuel scarcity that we normally experience, particularly at the end of the year. That has been, but recently, and last week, I think it was one depot manager of Ipman. He was complaining that the depot, the cost of landing has increased. And mind you, because of the Ukrainian war, the crude oil price has skyrocketed, getting to about $109 per barrel.
So
Which is a bad omen for us.
Yes, but what we are experiencing is not really big. It's not really because of the hike, in the price of crude oil. After all, The last I checked, the issue of the fuel subsidy is still in place, and the president has actually applied for, some amounts to be allocated for that purpose. So why are we still having this experience?
Maybe it's the one way of telling you guys that now we have to remove subsidy. Maybe.
Will that solve the problem? Because I don't see it solving it.
It will.
But won't fuel prices increase and, thereby putting in more hardship for Nigerians?
So that's another
By the time,
thing
fuel
entirely.
price skyrockets to 600 naira per liter.
I don't think it will be up to that amount, but there will be full deregulation. Mr. Ayuba will bring in, Ms. Dashila will bring her own, I will bring my own. So it will be demand and supply at play. You understand?
Okay, so...
And at least NNPC will not be spending 200 billion every month on subsidy. That money will be channeled through FAC. Our brothers and sisters in Abuja who work for government will be paid their salary.
Okay, now that the scarcity is actually getting, hotter, there's been a lot of clamors for employers to, be sympathetic to the plight of the employees. If it's something that, someone can actually work from home from, they should actually be pathetic, because if you look at it, the price of transportation has increased greatly, and in most cases, there's still not enough cars to actually take people to their places of work.
Yes, the OPS, the organized private sector, in particular, they have adopted so many measures with the COVID pandemic. And workers don't want that work at home stuff, unless if you are working for government. The federal government workers have been at home for close to 2 years, until just recently, last year. From level 14 down, if you are not essential staff, you work from home, and they still get their salary. But the organized private sector, where you work for, where I work, they use the opportunity to cut down. More than half of the staff were sacked. The remaining were placed on half salary. So that's the danger.
Okay.
So I don't see them, we're just coming out from the pandemic, and I don't see them adding any increasing the pay of their staff because of this, actually. And those in the private sector, they will tell you they don't want to hear all this work from home stuff, because it's a way employers are looking to retrench more people. But for the government, they have been at home for almost 2 years, and they have been paid. So that is it.
All right. Now, there's also another story here at the very bottom, talking about the politics of 2023. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is saying that Nigeria needs serious change.
He's the change Nigeria needs.
He said that as he seeks to be the president, he wants real change for Nigeria. I mean, the change mantra is what brought us here, isn't it? So how have we changed so far? Have we changed for the better? And then why is it not a real one that we are experiencing right now?
Politicians are coming up with all manner of nomenclatures, signature tunes, to advance their political causes, to seek or to build confidence of the electorate. Okay, as far as you, in 2015, I remember I followed the campaign. He was a principal actor that brought this government to power. Yes, I don't want to pass judgment, but both Nigerians, every Nigerian knows where the change has taken us to. So now maybe, as you particularly from because he's not deeply involved in governance, have seen the lapses, the change he worked so tirelessly to bring. That's why he's talking about the real change now. The real change. But I think the mantra now should change the change. Like PDP we have.
We also have in The Guardian where IU tells EU observers that democratic practices are declining under the APC. And now Asiwaju Tinubu is actually, trying to contest under the APC as well.
So that's it. Like Dr. Yochia, you have said, almost all the people trying to succeed Buhari under the APC are saying the same thing. Yahya Bello is saying the same thing. He said that if you elect me, I will end banditry, I will end insurgency, there won't be foil queues and whatever. We don't know how. Because using governance index, he's actually a bad example and a bad ambassador of the youths because of the bracket. But they will keep on saying this. They will keep on saying this. Okay, they are part and parcel of the government, but where are we here? Oh, they will tell you that the man doesn't listen, and so on and so forth. So it's just a political thing. Now, Tinubu has to pick a mantra, has to pick a signature tune to key into the psyche of Nigerians. But now, I think Nigerians are wiser. They know better. Because the way we carry this Buhari thing, and how it turned out to,
We are currently at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, where we expected the arrival of Nigerian returnees from Ukraine following the invasion of the former Soviet nation by Russia. Now, according to the Nigerian government, about 2,090 Nigerians were expected to return from Hungary, Poland, Romania, and Slovakia, respectively, through Max Air and Air Peace. However, the arrival of the first batch of evacuees, which were expected in Nigeria on Thursday, March 3rd, was, however, delayed. Now, according to a source who spoke to Trust TV on the condition of anonymity, the flight was delayed as a result of technical issues as well as a reluctance of some of the evacuees to return home. The source, however, explained that the issue had been resolved and the flight should be on its way back in Nigeria on Friday, March 4th, after profiling of all of the returnees by the airlines is concluded. Sagir Ibrahim reporting for Trust TV.
All right, well, there you have it. We'll continue to wait for the return of some of these Nigerians who we understand may be landing in Nigeria today. Well, we'll continue to follow up. Now, let's continue with a look at some of the stories that we're dealing with here. One of the stories is about the Abba Kyari story, which is almost everywhere. His extradition process is to begin, and that's according to the federal government. But a lot of reactions also has followed this story. Some have said, well, we've seen this coming. Some are considering this maybe some kind of ploy to shield, the other members of the cartel, of Abba Kyari and the likes. Because, the issue about Abba Kyari and Hush Puppy's case started from all the way last year, and nothing was done with respect to that until now. So it raised a lot of suspicion, isn't it?
Nigerian officials have a special way of doing things. They do it in such a way that all the speculations, permutations, people have to read meanings. Abba Kyari has been indicted for more than 6 months by the U.S. court. But here, no, we are not going to hand him over. He's our superhero. Nigeria is a country in desperate need of heroes. And he presented himself, he packaged himself as one. And we bought the dummy. Our lawmakers bought the dummy. He was at the chambers of the House of Reps. He was celebrated, I want to feel. But as the extradition issue continued, there was even conflicting remarks by various government officials. No, we haven't received any request from the U.S. No, we can't send him there. We have a system here that can, and so on and so forth. Then, bam, we learned that apart from the internet fraud that he was alleged to have been committing, shielding big-time fraudsters, he's equivalent to drug dealing. And NDLEA, you know, they didn't just come up with the story. They come with what lawyers may call prima facie evidence, video footages, screenshot of messages, and so on and so forth, you understand? And that is why Nigerians were asking, why now?
Now, even as it is, the NDLEA are saying that, you know, they're saying that the NDLEA charges may stall Abba Kyari's extradition to the U.S. because he's been charged with 8 counts.
I don't know, because the FBI indictment or watertight. It's not like what you do here. They do investigation, lead arrests, not the other way around. I don't know. I think he has already hired some senior lawyers, SANs. Who knows? The NDLEA charges may be thrown out based on technicalities. I said an instance. This is not the first time that a senior government official is involved in drugs dealing. During the Obasanjo's time, the then head of the director general of NDLEA, Lafiaji, who was a security DSS personnel, was alleged to have committed an offense. He connived with a drug dealer and took away, just like Abba Kyari was alleged to have done, some substantial part of the money. He didn't declare it. He was arrested and jailed. But the higher court, a court of appeal in Lagos, 5 years later, you know, dismissed those charges. Do you know on what ground? They said that there was a contradiction in the evidence by one of the witnesses, that he said that the money recovered was $62,000, whereas in another place he said that it was $68,000. It was based on that the appellate court dismissed the case and freed the man. So that's pure technicality.
Regardless of whatever, you know, other evidences that were filed.
So if they refuse to extradite Abba Kyari, saying that he should be tried here, our judicial system is funny, particularly when it comes to crime.
So are we to be excited about this or not?
No. He applied for a bail, right? Saying that he is battling diabetes and what is the other thing he said? Hypertension or what have you? Or is it cancer? That he needed to travel abroad. So it's a good opportunity to send him to the US. So that as he's facing the charges at the US court, you know, he will attend to his health in a befitting medical facility.
So it's a win-win, isn't it?
I think that's the best way. Despite the case, you know, Nigerians are very funny. Anything can happen.
So how long is this extradition supposed to take? Like, how long would the process take?
I don't think it will take that long. We have done it in the past. They apply and the man is sent there. Nigeria can even, the Nigerian government or the police can even hire a lawyer for him. Yes.
And when he goes there, what happens?
He faced the charges.
And then the ones here in Nigeria?
We wait. Maybe if he clears himself in the US, he may return and face the charges here. But my problem here is this. As it is now, the government can even withdraw the case at any time. What do they call it? They call it noli prosecute, right? The Office of the Attorney General said that the federal government is no longer interested in the case. And that's the end of it. Nothing will happen.
And then no further investigation into...
Yes, and another thing, it may take 10 years. Where is the Wadume case?
Very true.
The serial kidnapper. Still ongoing. Now, even the court will even say, no, you can't even take Abba Kyari to Ordnance because it's a that was the argument by one of the lawyers. It's a personnel. So you have to send him back to the police. The police have to maybe, if they have anything like court-martial him, maybe the court-martial may take another until after elections. Before you know it, we are tired of all these things. Now we are facing Ukraine. After Ukraine, there will be another wahala. Even you journalists will not be talking about Abba Kyari again. So that is it.
All right. Now, also another issue of interest is the request by the president to seek amendment to the recently signed electoral bill, or I would say electoral act now. The president is concerned about the issue of disenfranchisement of political appointees, in the whole thing, and that also has caused a lot of reactions by Nigerians. Some are arguing for, and some are arguing against this. But if you look at both sides of the argument, will this be necessary, amending that section of the Electoral Act?
It's a pure political matter. So it is not about justification or not. The president's men are not happy with that section 82, right?
84.
84, subsection 12. That bar ministers, special advisors, head of agencies from contesting election while in office. The tradition now is, as a minister, you can go to your state and aspire to be whatever you want to. If you win the primaries, that is when you'll come and resign. In some cases, if you don't, you continue. It will assume that you haven't even done anything. In some cases, the president, I remember, was it Jonathan? Any of my ministers that wants to contest any election should resign now. The president or the governor can do that. Autumn did it in Benue. He gave a timeline that if you want to contest for any elective office, resign. All his appointees, and some of them have done it. You understand? But now, the confusion is, Mr. Ajiboye, you want to be governor of your state. You are a super minister now. You are using your office in Abuja to, how do I put it, to even to harass, to intimidate your governor. That's why you are getting the ticket. If you resign before the primaries, what happens? You may not even get the ticket because you don't have the power here to harass and intimidate.
Some are making the argument that, if you talk about, giving political appointees undue advantage, over others. By that way, you are denying, you are not having that level playing ground for all to contest, for elective positions. Then what happens to politicians who are elected into public offices? So, for instance, you're a lawmaker, House of Reps, or you're a senator, and then you're also seeking re-election. And that also places you at an advantage, isn't it? So there's still that balance, isn't it?
You see, I say it's a pure political matter. What you said should be the ideal thing, level playing ground for all. But that is not the case. You are a minister, for instance. Let's say you are a minister of justice. You oversight anti-corruption agencies. You go back to your state, you contest election. Directly or indirectly, you can influence the arrest, detention, prosecution of your opponents.
How about
that is undue advantage. That's getting.
How about as a governor who wants to be a senator, or as a senator who wants to be a governor?
No, the Constitution is clear on that. For elective offices, 1979, before the amendment, people have to resign. Even as a sitting governor, if you are seeking re-election, Abubakar Rimi did it in Kano. You have to resign to contest. Your deputy will take over. You understand? But that has been amended. What we are saying here is for the non-elective officials. As a senator, you can go and contest as governor. If you fail, you come back to your seat. Nothing happens. But what the minister...
but what we are saying is that as a senator, you also, are having that undue advantage over others, isn't it?
I don't think so.
Who are also contesting for the same seat.
I don't think, because you don't have executive powers. You don't control the police. That is it.
What about the financial intimidation?
How much do you have? How much is the budget of the International Assembly? How much is the budget for the Ministry of Works? Ministry of Power? Ministry of Education? Defense? If you are a defense minister now, you go with a motorcade of nothing less than 10 heavily armed security personnel. That is what you go to your state. Your opponent is a House of Reps member. He moves with civil defense. So you understand. The concern, even the lawmakers that did this, the concern, those who have those undue advantage are those from the executive arm. Minister of Defense now, or even Minister of Interior. If Mr. Beksola is going to office, you will see armed men of prison service, armed civil defense personnel, armed all the services that he controls. You'll see them there.
Okay,
Which means there is no need of amending this section then. Maybe we should just maintain status quo.
For good governance, talking about level playing ground for all aspirants and candidates is good for democracy. But politically, the president's men are not happy that they were targeted. Because, let me give you a simple example before we go. There is a senior senator who wants to be governor in one of the northwestern states. And there is a super minister who is equally going for that office. In fact, some people are saying that it was that senator that smuggled this devilish clause to stop that minister. Because if that minister resigns today, he's nobody.
Okay, now talking about amendments, let's talk about something that concerns my gender. Okay, now the women are actually, occupying the National Assembly, taking to the streets, talking about how their gender bills have been rejected, being angry and all that. Now, I want to know what your take is, on them, because most people who have actually spoken about these gender bills have actually said that instead of women, waiting around and giving slots or seats, that they should fight and compete with, men the way it is done.
The whole thing has a problem, systemic problem. Do you know why? I am not an advocate of making laws to favor certain group of people. Part of the advocacy now is men and women are equal, right? Slug it out. Do what men are doing. Do the real campaign. But you are appealing to men to make laws for you so that you can have certain number. It doesn't work that way.
But the argument will be that it will take some kind of political engineering. It will take some kind of deliberate moves to ensure inclusion in our political system. And maybe starting with the laws will be very critical here, in order to make that room, to make that opportunity available to women. Because we know that, like we're talking about, a level playing ground, for everyone in our political process. If we are to go by what we have right now, there are some who have undue advantage over others.
Mr. Ayuba, let's be realistic. We have this law, not too young to run, right? After that law has been passed, how many young men were elected based on that law, not based on the godfathers that funded them, not based from of their batch of their births. Let's look at it that way. The young men we have in positions of power today, are we celebrating them? My take is simple. There are certain states where this thing cannot work. If you like, make that law.
If you're talking about slugging it out, right? Yes. Should it be a case of women having a certain percentage? Shouldn't it be like 50-50?
What I'm saying, why must you make that law? You want to be governor? Do what the men are doing. Campaign. Mobilize. Bring out money. Men are bribing all manner of officials. Bribe. Get elected.
I mean, should we be encouraging that in our system?
Okay, let them be sent, and don't do that. When men are sharing money, you sit down, you say it is because of the veil or the ogogoro that you wear that will get voted.
I mean, we should be discouraging even the men from the bribing others, isn't it? We should be after a clean political space, in terms of our electoral processes.
We are all advocating for that. But you see, Mr. Ayuba, I'm talking from the realistic point of view. I know someone, an intellect is a colossus when it comes to, it's a, what do you call it, reservoir of knowledge. But do you know his problem? He's a serial contender for the governorship seat in his state. While his opponents are going from one village to the other, campaigning with bags of money, he will bring DFID, USAID, all these developmental people doing PowerPoint presentation in one hotel at the state capital. I once told him, you can't win an election through this way. If you are in Rome, behave like Romans. So that's the only way to effect the change. Mr. Dashian, don't stay in your house or put all manner of makeup and say they will vote for me. Do what the men are doing. So that by the time you get elected, you bulldoze your way, do what all the men, get the money and what have you. When you get there, you will effect the change.
So, well, you'd agree with me that, women make out, most of the voters, when it comes to elections. And now these women are actually threatening because the National Assembly has said that there's no going back on the gender bill. And they're saying if they don't go back, that, there will be consequences when it comes to elections.
Thank you. If, for instance, now I want to be governor and you are my opponent, and as you said, women constitute the bulk of the voters, why don't you appeal to them to vote for you? Is it that women don't even trust their women and their counterparts? So that's it. Let's be realistic. Now, there are so many head of agencies that are women. How are they thriving? There was no law was made for women to participate in thieving, in stealing public funds, right? But we have so many head of agencies, public officials that are women that are facing corruption charges. They are competing with men 50-50 in that direction. So in this case, do the same thing. Don't wait for any law. But even the First Lady was at the National Assembly that day. I just say the First Lady was wasting her time. It's a men's world. That's the reality.
This particular statement there.
It is a men's world. I want to be realistic. I don't want to massage the ego of my sisters, my mothers, and whatever. But that's the reality. So what it simply means now, since women, as you said, constitute the largest chunk of the electorate, why can't you appeal to them? Or is it that they don't trust you? Secondly, there was another thing, men do, because most of the politicians are married, blah, 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 blah. Sit down with your husband. They say that they put meetings at night and whatever. Be ready for it. They don't do all these nocturnal meetings in the afternoon. They do it at the night and they sleep in the morning. Do the same thing. Or even form political party now. Let's have a woman as a chair. Dr. Sarah Jibril has been a serial contender for presidency since the last republic. She was in the PDP. I remember she was at the primary. She got only 1 vote or 2. So what it means that all the women delegates there didn't vote for her. Why? So that is the change that you have to start, not just making the law. We have not too young to rule or to run. What have we achieved?
All right, well, let's take a quick break now, and then when we come back, we will be rounding up the discussion on the paper review. Please stay.
Of the environment and their team for their commitment and active participation during the resumed 5th session of the United Nations General Assembly, which preceded the commemorative event. Similarly, I heartily congratulate the leadership of United Nations Environment Programme as we commemorate and celebrate your successes and achievements in the last 50 years. I take this opportunity to urge redoubled collective efforts to improve and sustain climate action, nature action, chemical and pollution action, air, biosafety, disasters and conflicts, green economy, gender, oceans and seas, resource efficiency, water and...
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now, while we're about wrapping up the newspaper review, we just have a few topics to actually touch on. Now, the first one has to do with, ASU and federal government, and federal government actually saying they need to go back and, look at the 2009 or 1999, memorandum of understanding, and also, federal government saying that they don't have enough funds to meet ASU's demands. So does it mean that the strike will continue, or will ASU find it in their hearts to, end it?
I think what Minister Ngige is saying that is something that they should have done since 2015 when they came. I assume when you come into power, government is a continuum. You look at the pending issues. You look at, when you take over, you look at your asset and liabilities, right? ASU is one of the liabilities you have on ground. So you look at the funding process, you look at the budget, you look at the revenue sources out of you. The problem with the federal government, they are too sluggish in doing certain things. Most of this industrial action by ASU would have been prevented if they have done this at the beginning. As Minister of Education, for instance, I come, where are my liabilities? Where are my assets? So I will just simply look at it. Then I will call ASU. I say, okay, ASU are not robots. They're humans. They live in Nigeria. They don't live in Ukraine. Bring them. They are intellectuals. This is the funds I have. This is my liability. ASU is just one of them. This thing is not realistic. How do you go about it? You renegotiate.
But is ASU disposed to listening to that kind of...
The problem is the government don't even call them. Yes. The current strike they have been in now, they have said this how many times? All the ministers just leave them. They are humans, they are parents.
Maybe we are thinking that the problem would miraculously take care of itself.
So this thing should have been done long ago. ASU don't send their children to abroad for studies.
Talking about sending children, now the bill was rejected, of public officers' children, attending schools abroad as well.
But even the initiator of that bill, what is wrong with his head? How can these lawmakers pass that bill? No. Most of them, their children are studying abroad. Those who can afford it, their children are in the universities where you pay 3.5 million naira per annum. Most of the public universities are tuition free. That is why you pay 25,000 naira, 30,000 naira per annum. You pay a hostel accommodation of 9,000 naira.
But if their children actually school in Nigeria, will that make them take the education sector more seriously?
The issue is this. Let's be fair. I'm a private person. With this ASU strike, I want my son or my daughter to read medicine. I want her to come and serve. I want her to get a job, because most of the advance you have now is not more than 25 years old. Somebody at the age of, let's say, 18 gets into university to read a 6-year course, let's say medicine. ASU strike has caused her or him to stay there for 8-9 years. By the time he's out of the university, he's not even longer eligible for NYC, which means that he cannot get a job because they say that he's overage. So if I have my small money, why can't I send him even to Nigeria Republic or even Benin?
But again, if you look at education, tourism, and the cost of that on our economy, that's a huge loss to Nigeria, isn't it? If we are to channel that money into the system, is it impossible to have the kind of standard that we are looking for out there here in Nigeria?
In public schools? No. Most of what ASU is demanding is for better infrastructure, research money, and what have you.
Yes, so but in terms of other sources of funding for the tertiary institutions, should we be talking about maybe an increase in the cost of school fees instead of traveling out there and then spending that much? Why don't you just spend in that much that you are able to spend out there within Nigeria, and then let's have certain institutions that will say, okay, this is how much you can pay for here, and then study within. You don't have to go out there.
That is a realistic approach. Kaduna has adopted it. But look at the outcry. Go to Kaduna State University, KASU. You want, let's say, go to KASU and go to University of Abuja. You'll have one course, people staying outside the hall with no functioning microphone, no sound system, some on the windows and what have you. More than 1,000 people. What do you expect? The lecturer doesn't bother. But now you are saying that you want other system. For a course, you don't want more than 150 people that can stay in the hall. Well air conditioned, with sound system, with even virtual means of lecture delivery. The person that goes to University of Abuja is paying 20,000 naira as a tuition per annum. That 20,000 naira is not even enough to foil the gen, for instance, so that you can have electricity, so that you can have sound system or what have you. It should be a win-win situation in the sense that we approach things from the socialist point of view, which is not a reality. Kaduna has increased the school fees from 25,000 naira now to about 150, about 250 to about 500, and people are crying. Compared with a private university that is not up to that standard, they are paying up to 1 million naira, 2 million, 3 million per annum. The standard is not even up to that public university. So increase the school fees a bit so that you can shoulder these responsibilities. My problem with ASU here is that they say that they want to be autonomous. You can't be autonomous while you are receiving money from government. And government doesn't have enough. Look at the budget system. UNESCO, they say that developing nations like Nigeria should earmark at least 25% of their annual budget to education. That is one. Agric, I think there is an accord here in Abuja by some African countries that about 15% of the budget should be earmarked to develop agriculture. On health, there is another 20%. I think it's a Nairobi agreement that developing nations like Nigeria should earmark about 20%. 25 plus 15 plus 20, you get about 60%. to earmark only 3 sectors. What are the remaining sectors? We are fighting insecurity, we are fighting banditry, we are fighting insurgency. What about infrastructure, the roads? What of power? The ecosystem, the infrastructure ecosystem in the power grid has collapsed. So you need to
but in doing so, you want to also take into cognizance those who do not have the financial capability to be able to pay that high, for education. What happens then to people who are unable to have that much?
I'm trying to be realistic. Instead of saying that you want to educate millions, the quality is poor. We have people who arrive NYSC camps across the country that they cannot even write their names. We have lecturers that are in the classroom that know nothing. The NUC recently said that most of our PhDs are grossly incompetent because they were supervised by incompetent people. Shall we continue like this by making it free, or to just put some money so that you can up the standards? When we were in secondary school at that time, we do real practicals, but now practicals are doing on paper.
Talking about practicals, there are those who have also said, how about we look towards bridging the gap between research and development? In this case, the industries, and then also, the practical skills, in our tertiary institutions, so that way tertiary institutions are able to raise funds from other sources. So how well can we do that? Are we harnessing that?
Where are the industries? Go to Kaduna, go to Kano, go to Sharaɗa, go to Kakuri. Where are the industries? In Kaduna Polytechnic, I know there is a textile department. In ABU, there is polymer and textile department. How many textiles are functioning? Go to Kakuri. It's a museum. It's an industrial museum. Go to Sharaɗa, industrial museum. Why? Because the paradigm, the economic factors are not favorable. This thing is from China. It's cheaper, more qualitative. The UNTL wax that it used to be of great quality, it has disappeared now. Everything is from Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, China. So the reality, the industry you're talking about has collapsed.
So isn't there a way to revive it?
Deep thinking, planning. Another thing, and let's be realistic. That's my concern. Let's be realistic. Go to the education sector. Even the curriculum. Go to recently, tech media, for instance. The entire thing has been unbundled. Mass communication that has been done at the degree level, for instance, has been unbundled up to about 10 or 15 courses now. Good development, you understand? Because you study mass communication, you'll end up master of none of the aspects that you have been taught. But now it has been unbundled. You can do media, you can do PR, you can do advert, you can be digital media, broadcasting, and what have you. Good development. All other courses, we do courses that are not functioning. With all respect to these people now, people are still going there, they read religious studies. And they come out and looking for white-collar jobs. You understand? Some are still doing courses that we don't need. If we have a functioning education system, you look at your needs. Based on the needs, that's where admission will be made. What do we need now? Do we need more engineers? Do we need more doctors? Do we need more health officials? Or do we need more media men? Everybody wants to read accounting. Everybody wants to read law. Everybody wants to read medicine. You see people who have read MBBS and now they are working as legislative aides at the National Assembly. Why must you waste your time and read law? Maybe I read law or medicine and end up as carrying the bag of a politician. You should be at the health facility. This brings us to the idea of the debt, total debt of the counseling section. Yes. We're just giving admission. I have a colleague, he wanted to read accounting, but he was giving philosophy. And he said he has stayed at home for 2 years. So the pressure was too much. He has to accept it. Philosophy for what?
Well, maybe we need more philosophers in Nigeria to help us think about the problems that we have and how to solve them, come up with ideologies. Well, I mean, there's a whole lot, associated with this, but because of time, we have to end the discussion. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Sharing perspectives with us on this program.
Right.
Yes, we've been speaking with Nuruddin Abdallah. He's editor of 21st Century Chronicle, and he is a reviewer of Today.
But in a situation where you find that a person look at the
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that